Hello everyone and welcome, and thank you for joining us for Lunch, Laugh and Learn, today's webinar session where we'll discuss self-care and laughter therapy with comedian, suicidologist and founder of the Laughter Clinic and fellow Griffith alumnus Mark McConville. My name's Joanne Nyland. I'm the Head of Alumni Relations at Griffith University, and I'd like to start today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which those of us in Australia are respectively located. Pay my respects to elders past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. In a few moments, I'll introduce you to our speaker today, who is going to share with us some self-care tools and strategies that are aimed at improving your emotional well-being and act as a buffer against the harmful effects of stress, anxiety and depression. And as the fallout from COVID-19 on our lives continues, I'm sure that these will be timely and very helpful. But before we do that, I wanted to introduce you to the Griffith University 2021 Outstanding Alumni Award winners, in case you missed the online ceremony and announcements last week. So this year's Outstanding Young Alumnus is Dr. Dinesh Palipana OAM, who's a disability advocate, emergency doctor and 2021 Queensland Australian of the Year. An educator, innovator, making a difference in the inclusive and special education in the Maldives, Ahmed Atif is the Outstanding International Alumnus. And Queensland's first Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Health Officer, Deputy Director General Haylene Grogan is the Outstanding First Peoples Alumnus. And the Griffith University Outstanding Alumnus for 2021 is the creator and writer of the hit kids show Bluey, Joe Brum. And on the rare off chance that you might have missed it, his ABC TV show is a global hit, winning awards including a Logie, an ACTA and an International Emmy. To find out more about these amazing alumni and to meet the finalists and group award winners, you can visit our website at griffith.edu.au/alumni, where they're profiled and where you can also see the ceremony recording. Now, as we get started today, just a reminder on some key webinar tips. If you have a question for our presenter, you can ask these at any time in the Q&A panel on your screen, and we will get through as many as we can during the session. I also need to let you know that this session is being recorded and content will be shared at a later date. If you would like to post a question but don't want to be identifiable, then I do recommend ticking the anonymous box. So I'm delighted now to introduce you to our presenter today, Mark McConville. A fellow alumnus of Griffith, Mark is an accomplished performer, stand-up comedian and MC, with over 22 years of experience at making people laugh. He also holds a master's degree in Suicidology from Griffith and is an adjunct lecturer at the Australian Institute for Suicide Research and Prevention based at our Mount Gravatt campus. As well as his stand-up career, he works in the field of mental health, specialising in self-care for first responders and defence personnel. And today we're grateful to him for joining us to share his knowledge and expertise with us. So now I'll ask Mark, could you please turn on your camera, unmute your microphone, and I will hand you over.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate it. So I'm just going to share this screen with you all. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate you tuning in. So I'll just give you a quick rundown as to, well, firstly, obviously my acknowledgements. I'd like to acknowledge the Yugambeh language people who are the traditional custodians of the land that I conduct my work and business on here on the Gold Coast, and pay my respects to all elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to pay my respects to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples that may be joining us here today, and also respectfully acknowledge anyone joining us with lived experience of suicide, suicidal behaviour or mental health conditions. So to give you a quick rundown as to what we're going to be talking about today, there will be a bit on suicide prevention there. We're going to have a big focus on self-care and emotional well-being. It is interactive, so as we go through it, there's a few exercises that I encourage you to, if you're in a position to be able to write some notes, take some notes down, that'd be great. And then we can talk about those. We're obviously also going to be talking about the health benefits of humour and laughter, and hopefully sharing some laughs along the way. So now, that being said, first things first, I'd like to just say that if anything that I talk about today strikes a chord with you in some way that you find distressing, or you feel as though the content has affected you in some way, obviously you've got the lifeline number there, but I do encourage you to please talk to someone about your feelings, about what's going on. It's incredibly important. We've just had Are You OK Day a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that I think is important is, you know, if you're going to ask someone if they're okay, if you are concerned about them, maybe just quickly go to that website, conversationsmatter.com.au, and it's a fantastic resource in relation to how to ask difficult questions and centered around mental health and specifically suicide and suicide prevention. And it just gives you a little bit of education and hopefully a bit of confidence when you're going into that conversation with someone. So right, so I just want to share with you a quick story as to how it is that a stand-up comedian came to be working in this field of mental health and suicide prevention. So when the world was working the way that it should be and everything was going great, I was working on cruise ships around the world doing stand-up comedy shows, which was fantastic. And the story I'm about to tell you was about a chance encounter with a husband and wife after a show that I did back on the Pacific Jewel cruise ship. And this was back in 2012. So I'd done my 1 hour comedy show late night in a big theatre, 1,000-seat theatre. And after the show, I'm just sitting at the bar relaxing, and this couple was walking towards me, mid to late 30s, pretty fit looking. And I noticed the lady was crying. You know, I was thinking, what's going on here with this lady crying as they're walking towards me? And I'll never forget it. You know, she came up to me and she wrapped her arms around me and said, I don't know how I can possibly thank you, because I have not seen my husband laugh out loud for 3 years. And just have a think about that, 3 years. You know, like, comedians do get people coming up to us after shows quite regularly going, that was great, I haven't laughed in days or weeks or, you know, sometimes months, but 3 years, how is that possible? So I talked to this couple for hours into the middle of the night, and it turned out that the guy was an ex-SAS soldier who 3 years previously was in Afghanistan. He was conducting a patrol, he kicked open a door and it was booby-trapped, and it blew him up and killed one of his guys and injured him, so he couldn't actively serve anymore. And here's this guy standing in front of me saying, mate, you have done more for me in one night than 3 years of counselling and post-traumatic stress management and everything else, because you've just made me laugh for an hour. You know, and I should say I was pretty funny that night, actually. And his wife was the one that really brought this to our attention, because she couldn't get her head around the fact that for the previous 3 years, she said, why is it that for 3 years, the people that are looking after my husband's rehabilitation at no point had said, are you still able to laugh? Do you still have access to your sense of humour? You know, so I got off the cruise ship, and this meeting really sat with me, the impact I'd had on this couple simply from doing my show. And so I started to look at, you know, the old chestnut of, you know, laughter is the best medicine, and what laughter does to the body, why it's important, and then obviously the role of humour as a construct that creates the laughter. And then that led me to, you know, the rates of stress, anxiety and depression in society. And then the flow on from that was the rates of suicide and attempted suicide. And by the time I got to there, I was thinking to myself, wow, this is an incredible problem in our society, that I just happened to work in an industry that could have a positive impact on this. And like I said, this was back in 2012, 2013. So one thing led to another, and I had a business mentor at the time, and he said, at the moment, you're just a comedian with a cool idea, because I had this grand plan of creating a formal link between the comedy industry and mental health. You know, so I personally believe you should be able to go to a comedy club on a Friday night, pay $30 for your ticket, buy one of the comedians' DVDs for $20, and then take your receipt to Medicare on a Monday morning and get a rebate. You know, because we've shown through research that you laughing for a few hours a week is good for your mental health. So, and that was when my business mentor said, you need to find a university that's willing to do research in this area. So we're very lucky, you know, as many of you would know, we've got the Australian Institute for Suicide Research and Prevention at Griffith and Mount Gravatt campus. I went in there and met with the then director, Professor Diego De Leo, and he said, look, you're onto something here. We think that you should come and study with us and in this field of suicidology. So as you heard before, it's a master's degree in suicidology, and they sent me the application forms, and I rang them up and I said, look, I'm flattered, but I'm not your guide because, you know, I left school when I was 14. I spent 4 years on the tools as a welder and then a sales rep, and, you know, I didn't even go to grade 12, let alone go to university. So I didn't have that undergrad. And I said, look, I don't qualify for this. And I got to tell you, to Griffith University's credit, you know, they said, we're going to recognise prior learn you for what at the time was 17 years of experience of being a comedian to come and get involved in this course. And that was what led to it, you know, and I'm very proud to say that, you know, I did that. And one of the things that has come up here is these rates of suicide that we've got in Australia at the moment. You know, and you can notice there that there's been a slight decrease in 2020, you know, when there was this national focus on mental health, which is incredibly important. And one of the things, unfortunately, that the media doesn't mention or focus on is the fact that for every one person who we lose, and they're actual people that we have lost, around 25 people have made an attempt to take their own life. So that being the case in Australia, we have over 65,000 people attempting to end their own life. And to me, this is the figure that we need to work on reducing. If we can work on reducing, you know, the people that think about harming themselves in the first place, you know, by default, we should bring down the suicide rate. So yes, in 2018, I graduated with the master's degree in suicidology. And I got to tell you, having, you know, gone into university study at a postgraduate level, having no previous experience, was an incredible eye-opener. The learning curve was more like a brick wall. You know, we joked that my first assignment, my first essay, I stupidly thought that, you know, they were interested in what I had to say. You know, we still laugh about that. But the support that I received from ACERAP in particular, from Jacinta Hallgood and Dr. Gavin Polk and numerous other people at Griffith helped me get through this, and my family, my wife in particular. You know, so anything can be done if you set your mind to it and you've got the right people in your corner. In the final year of my master's degree, I did a thesis and a dissertation, and basically on this human laughter, 5-week human laughter education program that we designed to improve psychological well-being. We conducted a pilot study, and as you can see there, the orange line is the rates of depression, and over the 5-week period, all of our participants had quite a decrease in their experience of depression, and this was measured with the depression, anxiety, and stress scale. So that's how it is that I came to be here, and now I travel the country doing laughter clinic and talking to people about this stuff. So once again, thank you very much for tuning in today. I hope you get something out of it. So when it comes to suicide prevention, I just want to quickly talk about warning signs, because too many times after we lose someone, you know, the common theme is we had no idea they were struggling, or we didn't realise they were struggling to a certain extent. And to me, it all comes down to education. You can't be expected to know the extent of someone's situation if you're not aware of what to look for, right? So suicide prevention is incredibly complex. But I would just want to break it down to these 3 warning signs, because I think they're the most easy to remember and the most identifiable. So hopelessness is a sense of not having anything to look forward to in your life. You know, there's just nothing to look forward to for this person. That's a warning sign. Isolation, when we're talking about isolation in this context, we're talking about emotional isolation, not physical isolation. So emotionally isolating yourself from your friends and your family, that's a warning sign. And the bottom one there, burdensomeness, is really the big ticket item of the 3. You know, it is very significant. And so I just want to be very specific when it comes to burdensomeness. So if you hear this sentence or something similar, my friends and family would be better off without me around. Okay, that is a significant warning sign, because in their mind, they actually believe that to be the case, and it will never, ever, ever be the case. Okay, so if you can identify those three, you know, that person is really in need of some help. And so once again, conversations matter. Go there, you know, get a little bit clued up on what to talk about and move forward. So let's talk about self-care today. Okay, so now I want you to cast your mind back to the last time you were on an aircraft, and for a lot of you it would probably be a fair while, but we've all been on a plane at some point in our life. And what it is that they ask you to do with the oxygen mask on these planes, they're very specific. They say to you, put the oxygen mask on yourself first before helping others. And the reason for that is basically because you're no use to anybody if you are suffocating. And our day-to-day life is exactly the same. If we want to be the best, not only for ourselves, but for the people around us, we need to find a way of, you know, putting the oxygen mask on ourselves first. And quite often, you know, self-care gets shuffled to the bottom of the to-do list. You know, we're always doing things for other people, and we think that it's been seen as being selfish to take time out for yourself, when in actual fact it's incredibly important to take time out for yourself and look after yourself. So these reminders that I want to talk to you about today, we all know these. You know, I'm not reinventing the wheel in any way here. This is all stuff that we all know, but unfortunately sometimes, you know, we get caught up in our day-to-day life and we forget about these things. So today's timely reminders are that there are things in your life that make you happy. There are things in your life to be grateful for. There are things in your life to look forward to, and there are things in your life that make you laugh. Okay, and at the center of that is psychological well-being. So let's unpack those individually. So what makes me happy? So I invite you to have a think about, what are the top 5 things in your life that make you happy? Now, whether this is now or in the past, 5 things that make you happy. Now, for me personally, as you can see on the screen there, I'm incredibly fortunate. My wife makes me happy, my little grandson there in the middle, my dogs, my mates, okay, and me time, you know, that's right, I like bonsai trees, I'm into little trees, I dig it. But me time is incredibly important. So I invite you to have a think about, what is it in your life that you do just for you? Do you have something that you do just for you? Is it reading, playing music, listening to music, gardening, you know, exercising, whatever it is? You know, have a think about, what is it in your life that you do just for you? And if you don't have something, you know, maybe have a think about, what is it that you could do that you've always wanted to do just for yourself? So I'm very fortunate that I've got these things in my life that make me happy. And I'm incredibly fortunate that probably one of the biggest happinesses that I get is walking on stage and making people laugh. You know, it is an incredible job being a comedian, and you know, if you have ever told a joke to someone and you've felt that joy when they've sat there and laughed at what you've said or something like that, times that by 1,000, and that's what we feel when we're on stage. It's incredible, and I'm very, very, you know, happy to be doing this, very grateful. So all things being fair and equal, telling you what makes me happy, I'll tell you something that doesn't make me happy. That's Turkish delight. Okay, everyone says, oh look, you got to try Turkish delight in a Turkish restaurant. Well, that's what I thought of it in a Turkish restaurant. I'm not into it. I'm not into it. So this is the interactive part. So if you're in a position now, and we will have the Q&A at the end there, but if you're in a position to write down, you know, what are the 5 things in your life that make you happy, right? So just, and like I said, it may be something now, it may be something that has happened in the past that you can revisit, but at some point in your life, you've had 5 things that make you happy. And what are those top 5? What are they? So one of the things that I find when I do this live, right, so obviously I love doing it in front of an audience of a couple of hundred people. So, you know, I'm here in my office and I can't really, you know, interact with you the way that I would normally do. But when I've got an audience and I, you know, stand up, mate, how you going, what's your name, what, you know, your top 5 things that makes you happy. One of the most common threads of all of the answers is other people. You know, it'll be, you know, the boyfriend, the girlfriend, the husband, the wife, the kids, the grandkids, you know, their friends. It is other people that, because we are social creatures, you know, and more often than not, in your top 5 things, you know, other people will be a common thread amongst the answers. And that's why personally I have a big problem with the term social distancing. You know, for the last year and a half, we've been told social distance, when in actual fact, they're asking us to be physically distanced. Okay, we need to be socially connected now more than ever. We need to be socially connected. Okay, find a way to do it. You know, whether it's online, a phone call, a meeting, whatever. You know, we're incredibly fortunate where we are here in Southeast Queensland that we're able to get together with our friends and family in a physical way. So the next one, what are 3 things in your life that you're grateful for? Okay, once again, have a think about it, write them down. And the good thing about this exercise is it enables you to focus on what it is that you have got in your life, okay, as opposed to focusing on things that you don't have. You know, being grateful is an incredibly important tool. You know, like I know right at the start of my journey into this mental health field, you know, around the same time as I met that couple on the cruise ship, I was coming out of like a 15-year battle with depression. And like many people that go through it, I tried numerous medications and I tried numerous, you know, health professionals and psychologists. And it wasn't until I had the right combination of the right doctor, the right GP, the right psychiatrist who all worked together, you know, and they said 2 years, give us 2 years of focusing on the stuff that we're going to do and we'll get you out of this. And they were right. I did the exercises and, you know, I came out of that, and the end result is, you know, going to university I started at the age of 45, you know, meeting my partner who's now my wife, buying a house. You can get there, you can get out of it. One of the exercises that they got me to do over this 3 years is journaling. And every day they would say, you need to start your journal. I'm Mark McConville, am grateful for the following 3 things in my life. It's an incredibly powerful exercise because it really enables you to focus on what you've got. So write them down. The next thing I want to talk about is the future thinking exercise. So we started by going through, you know, a sense of hopelessness is a warning sign, not having anything to look forward to in your life. And we've all got stuff to look forward to in our lives, but we just, sometimes it can be too big a question. People go, I don't know how to answer that. It's too much, you know, what are you talking about? So I want to break it down for you into 3 timelines. Okay, so have a think about what are you looking forward to in the next 2 days, the next 2 weeks, or the next 2 months. And this can be absolutely anything. It can be a phone call. It can be something you've got planned for the weekend. It can be a trip away. It can be, you know, the last episode of Marriage at First Sight. I mean, seriously, when is that going to end? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but last year I finished Netflix and I found myself watching free-to-air TV, and, you know, I stopped short of watching Married at First Sight. That's all I can say. You know, so what there are things in it can be a meal, you know, your favorite meal that you're going to cook, you know, on the weekend, or catching up with your friends or whatever. But having things to look forward to, incredibly important. You know, so for me, the next 2 days, I'm catching up with my brother-in-law tomorrow, which is going to be great. Next couple of weeks, I'm getting a few things done around the house, which we're looking forward to. In the next 2 or 3 months, my wife and I are going to head up to the Whitsunday. So, you know, what are your 3 things? What are you looking forward to over the, you know, time period coming up? Very important exercise. As I said, all of these are things that we all know. You know, we know this stuff. We just need to be reminded. Okay, so we've talked about what makes you happy. We've talked about, you know, what to be grateful for, what are you looking forward to, and now we're talking about what there are things in your life that make you laugh. And the beautiful thing about laughter is laughter has been given to us by whatever means of creator or creation that you subscribe to as a biological release valve for overcoming and eliminating stress, anxiety, and depression. The proof of this in the fact that babies and infants laugh years before they have any understanding of language or humour. You know, we're given it from birth. So what have you ever stopped to think, what are these babies laughing at? Hey, we've all known the silent laughter. Now this is anxiety to laugh. And he's out of there. You know, we've all had those times where we've laughed so hard, you know, and many of you have probably heard those, you know, they talk about statistics. Babies laugh hundreds of times a day, adults laugh a dozen. You know, personally, I don't know how they could research that, but the simple fact is that babies laugh. We're given it from birth as a release valve for overcoming, you know, stress, anxiety, and depression. So what I want you to think about is, when was the last time that you really laughed at something? You know, and if you think about this, I guarantee you that if you dissect when was the last time that you really laughed hard at something, you're going to have been with other people, you know, because there's a big difference between, you know, sitting in your office or watching something on your phone or a TV show and laughing at that, as opposed to, you know, sharing laughs with other people and that, you know, laughter. So who was it? Who were you with? You know, was it your family? Was it your friends, your co-workers? You know, and the type of laughter where you've got tears coming out of your eyes, your jaw is sore, your stomach's hurting. You know, when was the last time that you really laughed hard at something? You know, hopefully it hasn't been too long ago. You know, so what we're going to do now is, you know, we're going to try and have a bit of a laugh together. Obviously, as a comedian, it would be remiss of me to not tell you a few jokes. And, you know, this is the thing is, I have to say that as a comedian, the difference between doing live entertainment and things like this online is it's chalk and cheese, you know, because when we're doing it live, it's incredible what happens when you're in a live situation. You know, sometimes they get the comedians to do comedy shows on cruise ships for kids, you know, kids. And I'm not a kids entertainer when I do late night adult comedy. So when I have to do a kids show on a cruise ship, I cheat. I get the kids up onto the stage and I have a little joke telling competition and I make the kids the star of the show. And I've got to tell you, if there's any parents out there, you should be ashamed of yourselves, the things that come out of these kids' mouths, because there's no political correctness with kids. They say the most inappropriate things. You know, I've got this beautiful 8-year-old girl on stage one night in front of 400 people. And I said, "Have you got a joke, sweetie?" And she goes, "Yeah, it's in 2 parts, mister. Is that all right?" And I'm like, "Of course that's all right. You know, it takes up more time." And I said, "So what's the first part of your joke?" And she goes, "Why did Sally fall off the swing?" And I said, "Oh, I've got no idea why." And she goes, "Because she had no arms." And I'm like, "What?" I said, "Dare I ask, what's the second part of this joke?" And she goes, "Knock, knock." I said, "Who's there?" And she goes, "Not Sally." You know, I got comedy slapped by an 8-year-old girl. And the other thing about being a comedian is, you know, we look at everyday life in ways that, you know, we dissect the things that we all experience. Like, you know, we're talking before about when was the last time you're on a plane, you know, and that safety speech. I mean, don't they bang on about this life jacket like it's going to do something? You know, it's got a light and a whistle for attracting attention, you know, and I got to tell you, now here's the thing about the life jacket on a plane. You know, if you're on a cruise ship and you're bouncing around in the middle of the ocean, you know, yeah, show me the life jacket, you know. Or if you're in an aircraft and you're flying over the ocean, you know, sure, show me the life jacket. But wrap your head around this. A few years ago, I flew from Mount Isa, right, to Alice Springs, and they showed us the life jacket. I mean, what do they think's going to happen? You know, we're going to fly into a mountain raft, get out the raft, you know. And I don't know about you guys, but have you ever tried to get the life jacket out from underneath the seat? You know, I have, because I'm a comedian. You know, like I said, we research stuff. So a few years ago, I was flying from Brisbane to Vanuatu to get on a cruise ship. And it's a 3-hour flight across the Pacific, and we're about halfway across, and I'm getting a little bit bored. So I thought, I'm going to get the life jacket out, you know, just to check it out. So this was the deal, right? I was in the window seat. The guy beside me in the middle is passed out asleep, and the guy beside him on the aisle is buried in a book. And I thought, perfect opportunity to do this, because I'm not going to bother anybody. So I'm underneath the seat and I'm fishing around, and there's a big yellow stripe and a red tag, and I'm grabbing it and it's not coming out, and I'm grabbing it and it's not coming out. Now, I don't know what was going on, but I couldn't get the life jacket out. And here's the problem though, my friends. I'm struggling so much with this thing that I have bumped the guy beside me, right? And I've woken him up, and he's gone, "What are you doing, mate?" And I've gone, "I can't get the life jacket out." And I got to tell you, the stress on this guy's face, you know, never mind, the terror, you know, never mind, I saw terror that day, and he's actually gone, "Should I get mine out?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, come on, let's go." And I got to tell you, I've never apologized so much in my entire life, you know. And every now and then you'll have a chance encounter with someone that you don't know, and you just think to myself, this situation is laughable. You know, like I've been living on the Gold Coast since 2007, and you know, people talk about the crime on the Gold Coast. Well, I was a victim of crime the week that I moved here to the Gold Coast. Why? Because I moved here during Schoolies week, right? And you know what they stole? Of all things, my wheelie bin, right? Now, you may be sitting there thinking, who cares? But you don't realise how much you need your wheelie bin until someone takes off with it. Right, so I've gone to the Gold Coast City Council to get a replacement bin sent out to me, which is a simple task, you would think. And the first thing this lady did was ask me to give a description of it. And I'm like, what? And she said, and then she asked me probably the strangest question I reckon I've ever been asked in my life. She said, "So Mark, what do you believe happened to your bin?" And I'm like, "Excuse me?" And she goes, "You heard me. What do you believe happened to your bin?" And I'm like, "Well, it started a few weeks ago, really. My bin was acting a bit strangely. I'd come home, it had been out all night. I'd have to drag its sorry ass in the mornings. Some days I'd wake up, my bin's passed out on the footpath, empty bottles everywhere, off its face. I mean, what happened to my bin? Are you serious?" I was laughing about that for weeks afterwards. Anyway, so look, that's just a little bit of what I would kind of talk about on stage doing a comedy show. And I know it's not the same here doing it live, doing it online, but you know, I hope you enjoyed a bit of that, you know, because that's the kind of comedy that I like and I talk about. So having said that, I want you to think about the health benefits of laughter, right? Because when you've experienced laughter, you know, so hopefully maybe you got a laugh out of that for the last 10 minutes or something. But when you go to a comedy club or you experience laughter watching something or with your friends and family, the physical and psychological benefits are incredibly huge. All right, so let's talk about the physical benefits first. These are the benefits that if you go and do laughter yoga in the park or something like that, this is the physical benefits of laughing, right? Okay, circulation is stimulated, your stress hormones, cortisol, epinephrine's depleted, and at the same time, the feel-good hormones of dopamine and serotonin are increased. You know, immune systems are increased, mental function, exercises, relaxes muscles, you know. We know comedians believe that audiences got a shelf life of about 2 hours. If you've been laughing flat out for 2 hours, you're exhausted. It's a physical workout, you know, but psychologically, this is where the humor as the construct that creates the laughter is incredibly important. Okay, so reduces stress and counteracts symptoms of depression. If you're finding something funny and humorous at that moment, you're not depressed. You know, enhances memory, contagious. It is contagious. We've all been in a room where we've experienced laughter and we've just thought, you know, how good is it just to be here? I want to share this clip with you. And you know, the amazing thing about that is we never actually find out what it is that he's laughing at, you know, but it does, it improves interaction in relationships. You know, laughing with your partner is incredibly important. Friendliness, helpfulness, you know, this is all very basic stuff, you know, and it's a really important part of our psychological makeup is being able to find things humorous. And as a survival mechanism, you know, this book was written by a guy who was a POW during the Vietnam War, you know, for years, 7 years, him and his fellow prisoners were isolated from each other as a way of breaking their spirits. And they tapped out jokes on the walls of their cells for 7 years as a way of lifting themselves psychologically out of this horrific situation. And I got to tell you, as a comedian, when I read that, I thought 7 years, that's a lot of jokes. And I thought, you really want to get, you know, Morse code, you really want to get those dots and dashes right, because if you mix that up, Jack and Jill becomes Jack and Bill, you know what I'm saying? It's a different story. And I've got to tell you, one thing going to university really highlighted for me is the value of research. You know, and we're constantly being told what's good for us, what's not good for us. But now I'm very much of the mindset of show me the evidence to back it up, what you're talking about. And this stuff about humour and laughter being good for you, it has been researched for decades around the world. There is tons of it. You know, I like this one because of the last paragraph. You know, the following seems to be good advice for patients and health professionals. Add laughter to your working and daily life. Remember to laugh regularly, what we're talking about, remembering this stuff. Share your laughs and help others to laugh too. So I know what you're thinking. That's all very good, funny man. How do we do it? How do we do it? The most important question that you can ask yourself to start with is, it starts with this question: what makes me laugh? You know, because it's different for everybody. Your sense of humour is totally unique to you, you know, and there's positive humour and negative humour. You know, affiliative is making other people laugh. It's what comedians do. Self-enhancing humour is what emergency services personnel use when they use humour as a way of coping with stress and high degrees of exposure to trauma. You know, the thing about our sense of humour is, I'll use this example to highlight how different it is for everybody. What makes a police officer laugh, or a paramedic, or a fiery, or a, you know, defence force personnel? What makes them laugh could offend a primary school teacher. You know, does that make it wrong? Absolutely not, because they're using humour in the self-enhancing way as a way of coping with, you know, it's a coping mechanism. It's a way of building resilience. Negative humour, aggressive and self-defeating, laughing at the expense of someone else and laughing at the expense of yourself. You know, and the research shows that if, you know, there's a humour styles questionnaire, if you score highly on the positive side of humour, negative correlation with symptoms of depression. If you score highly on the negative side of humour, there's a positive correlation with symptoms of depression. But the unique thing about this is that in Australia, our sense of humour is so unique. The Australian sense of humour, you know, I want to do research to show that, you know, Australians use aggressive and self-defeating humour in a positive light as well, you know, because we've got that old saying, if we like you, we take the mickey out of you. You know, it's a way of accepting you into our group. Or if you're joining a group, you take the mickey out of yourself. It's a way of saying, I'm no better than you. I want to be accepted into your group. So an interesting study of research, field of research, I think, that I want to explore. And then you think, how can I bring more? So once you've answered the question, what makes me laugh, then you go, how can I bring more laughter into my life? Right. So if you had your own personal laughter library, what would be in it? You know, so if you've got a mobile phone, you've got a YouTube account, build a laughter library playlist. If you don't know how to build a playlist on YouTube, ask a 10-year-old, okay? And then grab a heap of clips and put them in your playlist. You know, if you're into cats playing the piano, or your favorite comedian, or your favorite comedy sitcom, you know, just grab a heap of snippets from 2 minutes to 30 minutes, whatever, and put them in your laughter library playlist. And then every day, you know, now you can give yourself a self-initiated laughter therapy session, 20 to 30 minutes a day, or a little, you know, 5-minute break throughout the day. And you're looking at content that you've chosen for yourself, you know, not some researcher. You've chosen this because this is what makes you laugh as an individual. And also spend more time with those people who make you laugh. You know, we all have people within our circle of friends and family that we know we can share a laugh with. They have a similar sense of humour to us. You know, try and find a way of spending more time with those people. And then we look, how can I bring more laughter into the lives of those around me? So share your laughter library, share with other people. And when I talk about sharing in this context, I'm talking about, you know, not sending someone a link, or, you know, posting something on social media, or a message or something like that. Try and find a way of actually being in physical contact with this person and sharing a laugh with them, you know, together, as opposed to online via social media or something like that. Big difference. And obviously we need to be mindful, okay? And when you're sharing content, when it comes to, you know, humorous clips or whatever, be mindful of your audience. Like I said, we all know the people in our circle of friends and family who share our sense of humour, who are similar to us in what makes them laugh. And, you know, we know people that we can share a laugh with and people that we can't, you know, and obviously the purpose of this exercise is to build relationships, not damage them. Okay, so be mindful of the people that you're sharing your content with. Just winding up before we get to the Q&A, a few protective factors for, you know, against poor mental health: feelings of belonging, important, construction use of leisure time, me time, find that thing that you do just for you, physical health, help-seeking behaviour, putting your hand up, saying I'm struggling, you know. And I've got to tell you, with everything that's been going on for the last year and a half, it is okay to not be okay right now. It's always okay to not be okay, but now more than ever, because we're, you know, there's a lot going on. And if you do put your hand up for seeking help and you get told, you know, by health professionals to do something, being treatment compliant is incredibly important. There's no use being told how to get out of it if you don't do what they're telling you. And support, you know, support is everything. So once again, just to reiterate the 4 pillars that we spoke about, you know, throughout the presentation, reminding yourself there are things in your life that make you happy. There are things in your life to be grateful for. There are things in your life to look forward to, and there are things in your life that make you laugh. Okay, and at the center of that, we've got psychological well-being. So I'll invite some questions now. Okay, comment from Nick. Did laughter yoga workshop many years ago. Fantastic. Would highly recommend laughter yoga. Yeah, you do end up quite exhausted at the end of it. You know, that is the truth. It is a full-on workout. It really is. What else have we got here? Okay, what advice if you feel a level of social anxiety that makes you feel extremely uncomfortable about laughing in public due to a fear of being ridiculed? Anxiety about laughing in public stops me from participating in things like laughter yoga. Well, in that case, and you know, anxiety is a very real thing for a lot of people, and so my way of looking at that would be, as opposed to being in public, you know, you would try and ease yourself into it, you know, because there's a big difference between, you know, laughing with your friends, or a small circle of friends that you know and trust, as opposed to, you know, laughing in the middle of, you know, 200 people at a comedy club. So if at all possible, to try and start, you know, baby steps. It's all about baby steps, trying to, you know, just, you know, between 2 or 3 people, kind of build it up that way. But obviously people that you trust. I hope that helps. Do I have any advice how to reach friends, family who might be struggling but might not really recognise it? Do I just take them to one of your shows? When it comes to, have any advice on how to reach friends, family who might be struggling, once again, I suggest you go to that website, conversationsmatter.com.au, and what that will do is that will give you some tools as to the best way it gives you some tools as to what to look for, what to recognise, and also how to have a conversation with that person that you might be worried about, that might be struggling. Comment from it is currently Queensland Mental Health Week. I had my calendar to do a company post today. Just today, so time to help. I had it in my calendar today to do a company post today. Read this, so today was timely to help me structure this. Any tips appreciated. Invite your company to ask themselves what makes them laugh. Have a think about, encouraging laughter in a workplace is incredibly important, and obviously it needs to be, you need to be mindful of the situation. Not all workplaces, it's appropriate to have laughter, but encouraging your staff to have a sense of humour about things, and as individuals, what makes them laugh is, to me, that one thing is an incredibly powerful question to ask someone. What is it that makes them laugh? So if that helps, you could structure your post around inviting your workers to ask themselves what makes them laugh. A gratitude journal, does it get repetitive over a period of time? It does, to a certain extent. So what I found was I'd write 3 things one day, and then I might write 3 different things the next, and I might go back, because it doesn't matter if you're repeating yourself, So one day you might be saying, I'm grateful for the fact that I've got a roof over my head, I've got food on my table, and I'm safe, And another day it might be, I'm grateful for the fact that I live in Southeast Queensland, I have a job, I live near the beach, or whatever it is, So you can really dissect it down. And yeah, I think I see what you mean about being repetitive, but it encourages you to look at everything in your life to be grateful for. Did you get a replacement bin in the end? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Thank you for asking. How to stay optimistic during this time of COVID issues? Look, it's hard. Everybody is really hard, and that's why this stuff is even more important. Like, I've got a lot of friends and family in Sydney and Melbourne, and they've been locked down for a very long time, and especially working in the entertainment industry, I like 8 months worth of work in 4 days, so staying positive is really hard. And that's why, staying optimistic is bringing yourself in to focus on the things that you can control, not the things that you can't, So what is it that you have that you're grateful for? What is it, that is making you happy? But you're right, it is hard, and that's why this stuff's very important. Did you use comedy to help your experience of depression? Yes and no. I was a comedian while I was going through all of this, so I find humour very important when it comes to dealing with depression. But for me, the biggest change for me was finding the right doctors and being on the right medication. That was what made the biggest change in my life. Would you suggest to incorporate this kind of self-care to workers that experience trauma in caring roles? In actual fact, I do a lot of, I've spoken to a lot of people that are in, emergency services or aged care, nursing, and that sort of stuff. And by nature, these people are empathetic, and they're giving. They're giving of their, it takes a special kind of person to be in a caring role. It really does, and it's very selfless. It's a very noble profession, and that's why sometimes I think these people in particular get so focused on looking after other people that they tend to not look after themselves as much as they would. So yeah, whenever I've spoken to people that are in a caring role, it's really focused on reminding them about these 4 things and that are good for themselves, as opposed to other working on how they look after other people. So I hope that helps. What about using laughter as a deflection, positive or negative? That's a fantastic question, and there has been research to, suggest that using humour as a masking agent. Okay, but the more often the case is it deflects something to a certain extent, but what that's also doing is at the same time it's building your resilience to that harmful negative life event. That's why I find that police officers and paramedics and fireys are a classic example of this. They use humour to cope with this trauma, and they're using it. Yes, they're deflecting the negative situation they're in, and they're deflecting their emotions from it, but that's enabling them to do their job at that moment. Okay, and which is very important. So positive, yes, I would say that it is a positive thing to use it. I work in HR. How would you go about bringing more laughter into the workplace? Okay, every company is different. Fantastic question, and this is very much about the mindset of the organisation. What is the organisation? Is there a time when it's appropriate to have laughter in the workplace and a time when it's not appropriate? Meetings, if you're sitting in meetings day after day after day, they can be tedious. Finding a way to bring humour into those meetings is incredibly important. But as I said, each organisation is different, so it's being mindful about what will work in your situation, and only you will know that. Only you will know that. How do you help a family or friend? How do you help a family or friend not willing to seek professional support, but in constant emotional turmoil and reaching out for time and help? Thank you for the other play. Look, it's hard. It's hard when you've got a family or a close friend that that doesn't seek help. I've gone through that personally with one of my brothers, and it's incredibly important. And one of the biggest things is you've got to understand that things are out of your control. And the problem is that we feel as though we need to fix it. We feel as though we need to be able to do something, and a lot of the time there is a certain level that we get to that we've reached our end of what we can do. You talk to a lot of people that deal with addictions and people in recovery, and they say that the biggest thing that the professionals advise is not to let someone else's addiction ruin the family's life. So setting boundaries as to where your level of support is going to be, and if they're not willing to seek help, there's only so much that you can do. So really don't need to put it on yourself. So I really appreciate how hard a position that is, but not letting their problems overwhelm you. And this is the thing, is being able to look after yourself is really important, because if you get dragged down into their situation, well, then when that person does put their hand up and says they need help, you're not going to be in a good place to help them. So that's why self-care is very important in that regard. Okay, just trying to get through a few more here. Do you ever find using humour is like being a politician? Sometimes people are laughing while others are offended. Any tips on how to deal with that split? Well, this is the thing about humour is, as a comedian, you end up making a living as a comedian when the majority of the time you're entertaining the majority of the audience. And I know because humour being what it is, that everyone's going to find something different. If I've got 1,000 people in the audience, there's going to be a certain amount of people, a small percentage in that audience, that aren't going to be into it. They're not going to like what I'm doing or talking about, and you've got to accept that, you know. So that's focusing on what you do in relation to making people laugh, and the majority is the importance. If I go into a show and I've made the majority of that audience laugh, well, then I've done my job. What is the strangest research you have done to get comedy material? Well, look, that could be a whole another hour podcast, because webinar, because honestly, I've done, 23 years I've been doing stand-up, so I've done a lot of weird stuff, so I really wouldn't know where to start. Okay, last question. In your research, was there anything that stood out as to what we can do in the preventative space versus the reactive space, i.e. building resilience? That's a fantastic question, that one. And to me, early intervention is the key. Like we were talking right at the start about the statistics. If we lose 3,000 people to suicide, and then we have, for every one person who's attempted it, for one person who we've lost, 25 people have attempted it. And then there's research to go on to say, we might have 65,000 people have attempted it, but then, there's this other big cohort of people that have thought about but not actually acted on it. And to me, early intervention is the key. So keeping ourselves in a mindset that we're doing what we can to look after ourselves psychologically is the best type of prevention to me, because it's it's not the they talk about being reactive is putting the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff, as opposed to having the ambulance at the top of the cliff. Well, I like to have the ambulance way over to the other side, so people aren't even walking towards the cliff in the first place. So that stood out in relation to what we can do in the preventative space. Yeah, early intervention, building resilience is very important, especially in our youth. I just want to quickly talk about that, especially in our youth, letting our youth know that it's okay to fail. It's okay to get things wrong. It's okay for it to not work out. I've done talks to a lot of youth, and I've had to say to them, there are times when you're going to have money, no money, times when you're in a relationship, out of relationship, great boss, bad boss. It's all the cycle of life, and if something bad happens, it is not the end of the world, and, it's incredibly important that in this building resilience that we educate our youth on the fact that it's okay not to get it right all of the time. In actual fact, it's a good thing, because you learn from it and you build on that experience. So I hope that helps. All right, so that was the last question from what I've been told, and so I take it now I am ready to hand back to Joe. So I just want to thank everybody once again for tuning in. I really do hope you got something out of that, and have a fantastic day, and look after yourselves, folks.
Thank you, Mark. Some really interesting insights and tips there that you shared with us today. And some of the anecdotes that you shared really resonated with me. And I hope that people are feeling a little bit more confident in managing their emotional well-being. The message is clear. Self-care is important. And there's nothing like humour to relieve stress and relax the body and mind. And by the way, if you're still listening, Mark, I agree. Turkish delight, no, definitely a no. As Mark mentioned at the beginning, if anything that was discussed today was a trigger for you, please reach out to the support agencies Mark mentioned, or to a friend or family member for a chat. I'd like to thank you all for your participation and sharing today. I loved watching your comments in response to Mark's questions and on the laughs that you were having. I also noticed that a couple of people shared some really good resources and suggestions too, so thank you for doing that. There were many questions asked today, and hopefully we were able to answer yours, and I hope you all got some really great takeaways from Mark's presentation. Don't worry if you didn't quite get it all down, or if you missed part of that. We will send you an email shortly with a link, not today, but shortly, to the recording of this webinar, and that email will also contain a short event feedback survey, and we really would appreciate you taking the time to complete that survey so that we can continue to improve what we offer to you and your alumni community. If you want to know more about what we do in alumni engagement or the ways in which you can continue to be involved with your university, please get in touch anytime. We're on Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. Just search for Griffith University Alumni. And I hope your association with us will continue for many years to come. I'd like to sincerely thank Mark again for being here today with us, and to all of you for joining us online from all around the world. It was great to have you here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.